Hello and welcome to another Finax podcast. My name is Tamara and my guest today is Toni Vitali. Hi, Toni.
Hi, Tamara, and thanks for inviting me again.
It's nice to have you back. Today we are going to talk about 5 tips for new investors. What are those 5 things that essentially we want to tell people when they finally decide to start investing?
Well, how much time we got? I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of things.
But we decided to be very, to the point and let them start easy. And I think this should be really easy steps to follow in order to give them maybe some boost and confidence to actually start and to see that it's not such a difficult thing after all.
Yeah, sure. I was just making a joke. I mean, obviously, the more knowledge we have, the better. But we really try to boil it down to 5 simple points for new investors. So probably the starting point, maybe the basic one or the most important one, is to make sure that you are on a solid ground financially. So that means that for number one, you don't have any high interest debts. So whenever you have some high interest debts, maybe it's better to pay those off first, generally speaking, than to start investing and hope to get a higher return than the debt itself. Maybe the real estate debt or the mortgage on your apartment or the house is an exception to this, but basically
maybe just a quick mentioning of these really high interest rates. We usually say anything above 5%, we consider that would probably go into this basket of debt that we don't really necessarily want to have.
Yeah, for sure. I'm even a bit more conservative. Like for me personally, if I have a debt that's over 4.5%, maybe I would work more towards repaying at least some part of that debt than to start investing my money, even if I expect a return that's larger, because returns are never guaranteed and the interest you pay on debt is always guaranteed. So you have to take that into account.
That's too bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the step number 1, maybe even step 0. But inside that step, it's not only important that we get rid of the high interest debts. It's also important that we have some sort of financial security in a form of an emergency fund. So we mentioned this quite a lot of times, and it's not without its cause. I mean, it's very important that we have some sum of money that we can rely on if it comes that maybe we lose our job, maybe we lose some other income stream, maybe we have some very high unexpected expenses and so forth. So we really want to have some sum of money that's just sitting on the side, maybe not providing us with some major growth, but yeah, the main point of the emergency fund is to help fund the emergency, as the name suggests.
True. So basically what we want to do is have stable finances, right? It probably means that as a prerequisite, we should do the budgeting, see where our money is going and how much we have every month to actually send to some kind of savings or investments. And once we, in a way, sorted out our personal finances at home, we can take this step.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people always want to learn about investing because it's very interesting. You can make more money and stuff like that. But I would argue that it's even more important to solve the basic stuff first. So the high interest debt, that we need to track our expenses, that we need to make some financial plan, that we need to have the emergency fund on hand. Those are all the basics that we need to take care of before we start with the actual investing.
Yes, because what can happen is that eventually we have an emergency and we need to withdraw the money. And as we know, there are volatilities. Once we are on the market, we can expect that our money is working for us, but temporary. That could be the day that there are some volatilities or the period that the markets are down and we need to withdraw our money and basically face a loss.
Yeah, exactly. So emergency fund covers us from those kind of risks. So, I mean, it's not omnipotent, but it really helps us with a lot of different problems we could encounter along the way.
You mentioned in one of the sentences something about the goals. So I think they should be our next step to determine the goals.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the way I look at it, I like to divide my own personal goals into 3 buckets based on time periods that I expect is going to be needed to achieve them. So I group them in short-term goals, let's say up to 1 or 2 years, then mid-term goals, maybe from 1 or 2 years until 10 years, and then long-term goals, 10 years plus. And I mean, we can make a special episode only on the goal setting, so maybe we will not go into the...
Yes, and on these periods, normally people say maybe short up to 5 years, and then mid 5 to 10, and then long. But you have a very short, you have a bucket with very short financial goals.
I mean, I think it also serves as a kind of a motivation, because if you only have like short-term goals that are also 3, 4, 5 years, it's maybe easy to get lost in it, maybe to lose some motivation along the way. But there are some financial goals that we can reach in 1 or 2 years. Maybe it is to build an emergency fund. Maybe it is to get rid of a debt or a part of a debt and so forth. So I think it's very important that we be realistic when we're setting goals, even a little bit more conservative, just that we know we have a good chance in achieving them. But as I said, there's a lot of details going here, like how to set goals and so forth. We can make a special episode only about this topic, but...
and we will. Why not?
I hope. But apart from dividing goals into those time buckets, also I think it's very important to focus on the process itself, maybe even more than on the goals. So I use goals more like a lighthouse that's showing the way than, some aim that I need to reach or else I fail. So I try to set my goals in a way that I focus more on the process. So for instance, if I need to pay off a certain amount of high interest debt, maybe I'm going to set my goal. Okay, I'm going to save, 100 euros each month, which is going to go towards repaying the debt. So I'm going to focus more on the process than on the actual outcome. At least that's what I found that works for me better than just, to focus on the goal and then, okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned is very important, that we need to be realistic when setting the goals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we're talking about investing goals, then always it's good to look in the past and look, okay, how this kind of investment, what were their returns in the past, what can be expected in the future. So it's not realistic to expect that's going to be way more than it was in the past. So if anything, I try to be more conservative, and I would more gladly be pleasantly surprised than unpleasantly surprised once the time comes to see if I reach my goal or not.
I think it's the same also with the income and everything. Our plan really needs to be realistic. Otherwise, we are not going to achieve it. And that's going to be very demotivating, right? So the whole thing might fall apart if we are not realistic in the first place.
Exactly. I think it's always better to maybe underestimate our income as well. Like speaking about even short term and especially long term, because there's so much insecurity about our income in the long term. Nobody knows what they're going to make in 10 or 15 years, and maybe overestimate our expenses. So after, of course, starting to track our expenses, maybe it's even better, to estimate 10%, 15% more than we think that we will need, just to make planning a little bit more bulletproof. So just to be a little bit more sure that we're actually going to achieve our goals.
Yeah, I think, I completely agree with everything you said. And I think the next step we should mention is that everyone who intends to start investing might not need to be super into investing, but they need to learn the basics.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, today it's much easier to start investing, especially for the long term, than at any previous time in the past. So we have much more different financial products and ways to invest much more easily. But on the other hand, I think it's also very important to know what they're investing in, like to know the basics of those products, to know, what is a stock, what is a bond, what is a fund, what is an ETF and stuff like that. Which sound very basic, but unfortunately, I would say maybe even the majority of the general population cannot explain these terms. So it doesn't take a lot of time, but it takes some time to learn the basics, to really know some basic stuff about the product that we are investing in.
Yeah, especially the part with the risk. We see so many people nowadays, being consumed with some kind of, let's say, speculations, not even investments, and not knowing what that actually means is actually meaning taking a lot of risk we are not aware of.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the basic concepts in investing is the risk and the reward ratio. So the more risk we take, we can expect a potentially higher return, and also vice versa. So if we take a very small amount of risk, we cannot expect a lot of return. We must expect a return that's in line with the risk that we're taking. So some of the other concepts are also the ones that we talked about before. We'll probably talk about them in the future, which is the compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world, according to Albert Einstein. So there's also some other concepts that we need to take into account, like inflation. We have to think about inflation when investing for the long term. We have to take into account, maybe I get this kind of return, but what does it mean for the buying power of my money? Like, do I actually get more buying power or not? So we have to compare it with inflation as well. So those are some of the basic concepts that we need to understand before starting to invest.
One of them definitely is also the point number 4 that we have agreed on, and that's that people often worry that they don't have enough money to start investing. So what we want to say today is really do not worry if you are starting small, or if you have just smaller amounts to invest. It's better to start with smaller amounts than not to start at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people maybe get discouraged because they think they cannot put aside
it's one of the myths, about
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even smaller sums of money can make a huge difference in the long term. Just a couple of weeks ago, I came across a very simple rule. It's called the rule of 172. So basically, it means that if we invest a certain amount of money every single month for 10 years, after 10 years, we're going to have 172 times what we invested. So if it's 10 euros, we're going to have 1,720 euros. If it's 100 euros, we're going to have 17,200 euros. So, and if we have an even longer time period in front of us, after 20 years, we have approximately 500 times more. That's assuming 7% return on investment. So, we can see that even those amounts that are maybe not as big when we look at them in the first hand, like over time, it can really add up with compounding interest.
Sure. So don't worry if you don't have large amounts of money sitting around your house. You can start investing nowadays with really small amounts, even from 10 euros. So I think the main thing is to make that step and to finally start. And in the end, I think the 5th one is as important as the other ones. And it is basically to tell the people that they should not be ashamed, or they shouldn't be worried to ask for help. Ask and learn as much as they can, or as much as they are interested to learn about the investments they are potentially going to take.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of ways today to get informed, to get educated about these topics. So there's a lot of free material on your website. I have a lot of stuff but in Croatian language, who knows it, on my website and YouTube channels and so forth. And yeah, there's a lot of information today out there. So plenty of chances to get educated, to get some help doing this. Nobody was born with all the knowledge in the world, but also I don't think investing is that difficult, at least this passive kind of long-term investing that I think personally is the best for everybody that's not a professional. It can be much more simpler than people think, but it takes some initial time and effort.
Yes, that's why robo-advisors are here. But it is essential, really, that, as you say, nobody was born knowing everything. So if there is interest nowadays, it's easy to get to the certain content. There is a lot of free content, as you say, also on our YouTube channel and around, and just ask professional rather than getting a good tip on over coffee, which might end up with a big disappointment. And we all really care about the money that we earn as we spend our life working and trying to earn it. So it is really a shame to make that kind of a mistake and get disappointed and then maybe never return to investing just because we didn't ask.
Exactly. I mean, we also have to keep our expectations, as we said before, in line with the historic performances. So a lot of people come into investing with unrealistic, goals and expectations. But even some of the averages that I mentioned, like 7%, 8%, 9% per year, those are averages of stocks basically internationally for a very long time period. And maybe for some people it doesn't, 8% per year doesn't seem that much, but over 10, 15, 20 plus years, it's
compound interest, yes.
Exactly. It's a pretty good number.
Yes. Well, I think we've covered everything. I hope we motivated our viewers to start thinking about investing if they haven't done so before. It's always good to start today if you haven't done it already. And thanks again, Toni, for being a guest. And thank you for your tips. And I hope to see you in one of our new podcasts.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me, and see you again.
Bye.